Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Lech Marcinowicz, Hannah's dad, and I'd like to welcome you all to this celebration of Hannah, Jonathan, and Saskia's lives. Well, we're finally able to go ahead with this concert. Almost 2 years to the day since we were planning to hold it and later than intended. Thank you, COVID. Still, we're all here and we are very glad to see so many people wanting to celebrate Hannah, Jonathan, and Saskia's lives with us. On your seat, you've probably already seen a card and a pen. Please feel free to write a few words about what Hannah and or Jonathan and indeed or Saskia meant to you. You can then leave these cards either on your seat or in one of the boxes in the patrons room, which is, as you come out through that door, is the first one on the left. We plan to create a book of your comments, which we'll let you know about when it's done, because the one good thing about Eventbrite is that I've got all your details. And I'll be able to contact you as often as I choose to. We are recording the whole concert, and once the editing has been done, I'll let you know how you can access the recording. We don't know yet how we're going to promote this afternoon through the media. So as a mark of respect for everyone, including the performers, I would be very grateful if you could refrain from taking photographs during the afternoon. Hannah loved the Academy, and we've had some wonderful moments here in Duke's Hall, watching her perform countless times. We can't think of a more fitting venue to host a celebration of her life. And so we're very, very grateful to the principal, Professor Jonathan Freeman Atwood, who arranged for the Academy's facilities to be made available for this concert. With that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Keith Bragg, retired Emeritus Professor of Orchestral Studies at the Academy, and as Hannah used to call him, her head of wind, at the time she studied here. Keith will say a few words and formally open the concert. Thank you, Keith. Should we move this out of the way? Oops, let me move it.
Thank you, Lech, for your introduction, kind words. Yes, I was head of Woodwind, the Woodwind department at the Royal Academy of Music throughout the time I do hope my students felt better about me than that. Yeah, I was head of the Woodwind department here throughout the time that Hannah, who we're here to remember and celebrate, studied the saxophone and clarinet. That was from 2001 to 2005. As a head of department at the Academy, one naturally has a lot of interaction with all the students in one's department. And although I was not Hannah's instrumental professor, I'm a flute and piccolo player, I got to know her very well through her time here at the Academy. After she left the Academy, our paths never crossed professionally or socially. But I have to say that such are the positive and warm memories I retain of her. It came as a terrible shock and a great sadness to me when I heard the tragic news of her death along with her young family in a plane crash. I can barely imagine the pain and sense of loss that this must have brought and doubtless still brings to her family and friends, as well as to those of her husband, Jonathan. I must say that I was very honoured when I was invited to say a few words today at this memorial concert to Hannah. And it is lovely to see so many people here to honour the memory of this remarkable young lady and young family. And also, as Lech has said, I think it is very fitting that this concert should take place in this beautiful Duke's Hall. It really is treasured by all alumni of the Royal Academy of Music and was certainly a hall in which Hannah played on many occasions. I first met Hannah in the January of 2002. I had just started as head of the department, and she had begun her studies here in the September before that. I was taking a wind repertoire class, which meant that I waved my arms and took the wind section through Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony, the wind parts of that. So it's a great piece for them to know and also for them to learn from. And it's a piece which has a huge part for bass clarinet. And on that day, that particular day, Hannah had been allocated to play bass clarinet. I didn't know the students because I was brand new in the job. And what I did not know at that point was that Hannah was primarily a saxophone player. The Academy did not operate, I don't think it does operate to this day, a policy of having joint principal study degrees. But to accommodate Hannah's special talent, because as well as being a fine saxophonist, she was also a very fine clarinet player and wanted to keep that up in her studies, a kind of hybrid course had been created where she would take part in events on the clarinet as well as on the saxophone. We were very fortunate that her saxophone professor was the multi-talented Richard Addison, who you'll hear from later. He was, as well as being professor of saxophone here, he was also professor of clarinet, professor of E-flat clarinet, professor of bass clarinet. And this meant that the situation could work well, where he could give Hannah lessons on all the instruments. And it did work very smoothly. But anyway, on this day, ignorant of all this as a newcomer in my post, I eventually reached a point in the sectional, after quite a lot of very good playing from everyone, including Hannah, when what I was expecting to hear from the bass clarinet was not what I was hearing at all. And I stopped and said, what is the problem? I didn't know what the problem was. Hannah then explained that she was mainly a saxophone player. She had never held a bass clarinet in her life before that day. And to cap it all, the bass clarinet part in Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony is written in the key of A, and the bass clarinet she was playing on was in the key of B-flat, which meant she was trying to transpose at the semitone at sight on an instrument with which she was completely unfamiliar. What impressed me was that she had got so far in the sectional before anything amiss had become apparent. And also that she had decided from the outset to give it a go, when it would have been entirely reasonable for her to come to me and say, look, I've been allocated to this, but it's a step too far. I can't be expected to do this. I don't play the bass clarinet. No, she took it on and she gave it her best shot, which was in the main very good. And that spirit of commitment, of daring do, of courage, was something I always associated with Hannah throughout her time at the Academy. For me, it was also a memorable moment. I was a green head of department, just getting to grips with a new job, and Hannah was a student near the beginning of her studies, trying her best to play an unfamiliar instrument. I think there may have been a kind of mutual recognition and a bonding in that moment. Part of my role was to adjudicate end-of-year exams, and at the end of, I think, her first year, Hannah played to me as her main test piece an exciting showpiece by de Mercemont, his Fantaisie on an original theme. She gave an examination performance which I remember so well, demonstrating technical dexterity and musicality, which was unusual in one so young. I think it was as a result of that examination that I decided that Hannah deserved some sort of solo performance within the woodwind departmental activities. Saxophones typically have slightly less to do than the other four instruments, flute, oboe, clarinet, and bassoon, since there's less orchestral repertoire and less chamber music repertoire for that instrument. After discussion, I think, with Richard Addison and with Hannah, we decided on a performance of the Concerto da Camera by Jacques Ibert. And so it was that in the following academic year, as part of our termly woodwind departmental concerts here in the Duke's Hall, Hannah gave a wonderful performance of that virtuoso work for saxophone and chamber orchestra. It was a privilege for me to conduct that performance. In September 2005, the Royal Academy Symphony Orchestra joined with the orchestra of the Juilliard School from New York to perform first in Leicester in the De Montfort Hall and then at the Proms in the Royal Albert Hall under the baton of Sir Colin Davis. On the programme was Vaughan Williams' Symphony No. 6. This features a prominent solo for tenor saxophone, and it was an easy decision for me to allocate Hannah to play the solo part. In the event, the solo part was made much more prominent, and I have to say more nerve-wracking, by Sir Colin, who stipulated that Hannah should wear a red dress and that she should stand while she played the solo. None of this is mentioned in the score. As I recall, he had a view that the saxophone here represented something surprising and sinister, a sinister motif, and he thought that this dramatic device would assist in making that point. Interestingly, I'd played the piece in the Philharmonia with Sir Colin a few years before. The saxophone player was called John, and Sir Colin made no such stipulation. Possibly he just thought that Hannah would look beautiful in a red dress, which she did. In any event, Hannah rose to the challenge with typical aplomb and played beautifully, making her own and the music's mark most effectively. Classical Source, an internet music site that publishes music criticism, wrote, "The saxophone player in a red dress stood up and amidst the black and white of the suitably dress-suited orchestra, there was a bit of theatricality, rather like Spielberg's little red-coated girl amidst the overall monochrome in Schindler's List." For anyone that saw that performance, which was all quite marvelous, it certainly was a strikingly memorable moment, one not easily forgotten. Hannah was a great communicator and was very open to advice, tuition, discussion, encouragement. She was one of the students who would often come to meetings with me and was always happy to discuss issues concerning her development. And I'm sure that that positive attitude contributed to her great success. Hannah completed her undergraduate studies at the Academy in 2005, gaining a first-class honours degree. And in my memory, out of the hundreds of students who passed through the woodwind department during my time as its head, she stands out as a shining light, not only in terms of her talent, dedication, and diligence, but also because of her delightful personality and positive attitude. As I said at the start, it's a great honor for me to be able to give this personal recollection of Hannah and to be here for the rest of this celebratory memorial concert. So my thanks go to all of Hannah's family for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, for those terrific words, fabulous words. And I promise you, there has been absolutely no collusion between Keith and ourselves, but I'm so pleased that he referred to the Sir Colin Davis performance, because that is one of the clips we're going to be showing you, all the way back from when Hannah was 22 years old. So you've got something, those of you who saw it at the time, I know, contacted us because all of a sudden there was Hannah at the Proms playing, and our friends would be on the telephone saying, "Did you know?" Yes, we did know. But anyway, so you'll see excerpts from that concert later this afternoon. The music you heard when arriving in this hall and taking your place here was composed by Jonathan and released as a disc called Cyclorama. Jonathan was a prolific composer whose work spanned many genres, and we'd like to open our tribute to him by showing you a montage of advertisements for which he provided the music. I'm sure many of these will be familiar to you. They're only a small section of his prolific output, and I know that some of the creators of these adverts are here in the audience today. Look out in particular for the Felix advert, which is the second one. This features Hannah on the saxophone. Hannah and Jonathan walked down the aisle to this piece at Tower Bridge on their wedding day almost 6 years ago. Jonathan's was a huge talent. As a child, he had always loved commercials. And I quote him, "There is something about them, the world they conjure up, the filming, the music. They feel like perfect worlds in miniature," he once said.
First we understand, then we make. Volvo, human made.
That's odd. Felix?
Clever Felix. He'll do anything that he's as good as it looks. You can see the succulent meaty pieces and how much he loves it.
Clever cats get Felix.
There's two kinds of rugby players, boys. There's honest ones and there's the rest. The honest player gets up in the morning and looks himself in the mirror and sets his standard, sets his stall out, and says, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better. He doesn't complain about all these sort of things. We do that, we're sunk. We can match them, because we don't go back carping, oh, we've done it this at Twickenham or Arms Park or Lansdowne Road or Murrayfield. No, these days are past. So from now on, the gloves are off. It's bare knuckle stuff. And only at the end of the day will the man who stands on his feet win the final battle.
Be prepared for anything, from front line to back, with the Gillette Fusion range.
Look yonder, look yonder, well the sun done gone. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, Black Betty had a baby, bam-a-lam, Black Betty had a baby, bam-a-lam, damn thing was crazy, bam-a-lam, damn thing was crazy, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, oh Betty, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, oh Betty, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Bam-a-lam, Black Betty, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, Black Betty, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, jump steady, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, jump steady, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, Bam. Whoa, Black Betty, Bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty.
Coming soon, The Voice 2015. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Absolutely wonderful. I mean, how to communicate so powerfully through music. I mean, that dementia advert gets me every time. Just absolutely superb. And that was the depth of talent that Jonathan had. And I hope you enjoyed that very brief journey through his work in the advertising industry. Music was always part of Jonathan's life. He took after his father, Martin, who too was a very fine musician. Jonathan recalled that he spent many school holidays watching and listening to the madness going on above and below the pit, and found that he wanted to write the stuff his father played. Jonathan's music career started early. At St. Paul's City of London School for Boys, he wrote music for school plays. And he then went on to Birmingham University, where he studied music and composition. There, he gained a first. Though in typically self-deprecating fashion, he was very offhand about it, saying that he had written the course himself, so he was bound to get a good mark. The creative field is one which is notoriously difficult to get into, and so Jonathan had to work hard to find a foothold in this world. He started out working in the theatre and then began to look at other avenues before getting a break in corporate films. He often took jobs where he could, teaching a bit at drama school or working with the Royal Shakespeare Company, as well as with the National Theatre, with renowned directors like Sir Trevor Nunn and Sir Peter Hall. In 2005, Jonathan wrote the score for Primo, a film about the Italian chemist Primo Levi and his experience in Auschwitz, played by Sir Anthony Chez. He was nominated for an Ivor Novello Award for this score, and I'd like to play you some excerpts from it to demonstrate the depth of talent and his ability to capture the mood of any situation through music.
An SS man walks past, doing a brief survey. They count us again. We shower again. We wait. We wait. And all around the barrage balloons. For the first time we noticed that on either side of the road, the meadows were green. Green. We look around like blind people who've recovered their sight. We look at each other. We've never seen each other in sunlight. They're coming. The Block L tester and his helpers drive us into the Tagesraum, the quartermaster's office. The room's not large. When the drive is over, a human mass is jammed inside, filling every corner, putting such pressure on the wooden walls they creak. You're in here. The thermometer reads 65 degrees Fahrenheit. We enter the laboratory, we three chosen ones, timid, suspicious, bewildered, like 3 wild animals slinking into a big city. It is, incredibly, a laboratory like any other laboratory. A lab. 4 soldiers on horseback, slowly appearing between the grey of the snow and the grey of the sky. 4 men armed, but not against us. 4 messengers of peace. They're very young, with rough, boyish faces under heavy fur hats, perched on their enormous horses.
Jonathan worked with classical musicians, including the Balanescu Quartet, for whom he wrote Cyclorama, which you heard as you came into the hall this afternoon. This is a series of 20 pieces that flow into each other and which was released on CD to critical acclaim in 2013. Later that year, his Christmas hit, Magical Moments, reached number 1 in the official UK classical charts, ahead of the great J.S. Bach. So we certainly should hear a bit of this famous hit.
Every moment, every heart
After working as a freelance composer, Jonathan set up Goldstein Music Limited, which proved highly successful under his leadership. Jonathan was a brilliant and lovely man. Many of you have known him well and can confirm his strength of character and generosity of spirit, his fairness in work and life, and his kindness and understanding. There have been many tributes paid to both Hannah and Jonathan since their deaths, and I'd like to quote from a couple of his fellow composers. One who is here today, Jeremy Birchall, and thank you for coming, Jeremy. Jeremy said, and I quote, "Musically, he was a rare combination, wonderfully able and genuinely modest. He wrote fluently, particularly for orchestra, and he had a deep appreciation for and understanding of music to picture. If there was ever an opportunity, he loved to conduct the orchestra and invite huge numbers of people from the advertising agency to the studio, even though this inevitably complicated the process immeasurably. He was always up and at work by 6 a.m. and had a frustrating ability to produce a detailed orchestral score, ready to perform and scored perfectly to picture before I had even switched my computer on." Thank you, Jeremy. Another, David William Hearn, spoke on behalf of many of us when he wrote, "Jonathan's humility and humble nature belied his many talents. Though his time with us has been cut tragically short, he made a lasting and positive impact on me and many others, which will be celebrated for a long, long time to come. I learnt more from him than he'll ever know. Thank you, Jonathan, for the memories, the moments, and the opportunities, and all of the laughs. A kindred spirit, an adventurer, a mentor, and colleague. But most of all, Jonathan was a true friend. I will miss him deeply." He was a humble man despite his success, his musical expertise, and his immense patience, never failing to bring humor and light into every encounter. He added so much to every project he worked on. He was known in the industry as being genuinely kind, honest, and good-natured. His friendliness and friendship, and his kind and caring approach were qualities which shone in every encounter. He always stood out as one of the good guys, the one you want in your corner. He was a wonderful son-in-law and someone who made our Hannah very, very happy. He liked cooking, which he was very good at, and drinking wine, about which he knew an awful lot. A lot more than me. And both he and Hannah loved flying. Many here will also remember him for those wonderful working lunches. Jonathan championed young aspiring composers, and he gave them many opportunities to develop their skills. Self-deprecating, as well as a bit of a pessimist, he was a perfect foil for Hannah, who was the eternal optimist and his muse. I would now like to introduce Nick Holland, one of Jonathan's closest friends, who together with his ensemble will introduce and play some pieces that were close to Jonathan's heart. Nick?
was written for Alexander Balanescu, joined by Charles Mutter. It was the Roman ending and the second intermezzo. Next, we'd like to follow it with a piece called In Extremis, which is solo violin. It was written for the National Theatre by Jonathan Goldstein as part of In Extremis De Profundis, which was a monologue with Corinne Redgrave from Oscar Wilde's Letters from Reading Jail. So it was rather extreme emotions for that one. So we're going to use In Extremis as an introduction into a quintet of 3 movements written by Jonathan Goldstein for his album Cyclorama for the Balanescu Quartet, and in fact also Catherine Jenkinson. Just to say, I was one of Jonathan's best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his wedding. And also, I'm responsible for Hannah and Jonathan meeting because he wanted a classical saxophone player for a trilogy of adverts for Felix, which you heard earlier. And I'm responsible for booking Hannah for Jonathan for those. weeks after I heard of their accident. So I never really thought it was going to be played anywhere, but here we are, and I hope you enjoy it.
There was a recording project which was to be done where Jonathan was going to arrange quite a lot of Michael Nyman's music for Hannah to play with a string quintet. Michael Nyman, of course, wrote a very fine saxophone concerto where the bee dances. We're going to play 5 short pieces of Michael Nyman, which I've arranged as part of an ongoing project now. These are Chorale, Candlefire, Intermezzo, Love, and Franklin.
can I just say thank you? So thank you, Nick, to you, Odile, Helen, Catherine, and Charles, and Alexander, for taking us so deeply and so movingly into Hannah and Jonathan's world, and for such a wonderful performance in their memory. I'm sure wherever they are, they've been with us now, listening to that wonderful, wonderful performance. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much. Top dollar. Absolutely. We will now have a 15-minute break, so please take the opportunity to stretch your legs, grab some water in the foyer. I think some of you may not even know there's a stack of water in the entrance foyer to the Susie Sainsbury Hall to the right over the entrance here. And please feel free to catch up with old friends and to complete your cards. We'll resume the concert at 3:15. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello, I'm Adam, Hannah's brother, and I'll be taking through this next stage of this concert. We have slightly changed the order of the second half. One of the Marici Saxes, Hannah Riches, is currently on tour and has flown down from Edinburgh especially for this concert. She needs to be on a train back to Scotland later this afternoon, so we have brought forward the Quartet's tribute. I'll let Sarah introduce their performance. Sarah?
I first met Hannah when she contacted me sometime after I left the Royal Academy of Music. I was here studying trumpet. She was following the Young Artist course of competitions and scholarships I'd done 10 years before her, and she was emailing to say hi and ask advice about something. I'd already heard a lot about Hannah and the great work she was doing from another colleague, and I was delighted to help. Hannah and I, sorry, I'm a bit breathless. It's quite a fast piece of music. Hannah and I became good friends. And some years later, we formed a new saxophone quartet together, the British Saxophone Quartet, with myself, along with Sarah James, Josie Simmons, playing fresh new music and having tremendous fun, performing gigs, including a brilliant project at the National Portrait Gallery. We did this for about 2 years, and after which it naturally disbanded and we all followed our particular passions in the profession. Marici Saxes performed in 2010, very naturally out of an event we were booked for. We often have people stand in for us when one of us can't make the gig. Hannah came to play with us numerous times as a great friend of us all, and we loved having her to join us with her brilliant playing, effervescent personality, and our mutual love of bubbly drinks. We are going to perform now a Scottish folk tune, Wild Mountain Thyme, and this is from our second album, Origin, which we dedicated to our lovely Hannah.
Okay, so before we focus on Hannah, let's spend some time remembering their beautiful little daughter and my niece Saskia. Saskia came into this world on the 2nd of February, 2019, and during her short little life, she only knew love and happiness. She brought such joy to her parents, and indeed to her grandparents and myself. We only had her for 6 months before that awful tragedy struck, yet she'd already made an indelible mark on all of us. Saskia was already showing promise on the piano.
Play the piano, Saskia. Show Daddy how you play the piano. Wow, that's such a good piece, Saskia. Saskia, that is such a good piece.
And she loved her baby sensory classes, where one particular song always made her smile. Here it is, and I encourage you all to join in and sing Hello to the Sun.
Say hello to the sun, shining down on me. I love the sun because the sun warms me. Say hello to the moon, beaming down on me. I love the moon because the moon guides me. Say hello to the corn, growing strong for me. I love the corn because the corn feeds me. Say hello to the stars, shining down on me. I love the stars because the stars see me.
I know that my mum, Chris, would now like to say a few words.
This is the last thing I can do for my beautiful Hannah. It's also the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, but I know you're all with me. Never does a day go by when we don't think about our beautiful little family, which was so cruelly and prematurely snatched away from us. They were travelling for a well-deserved holiday, but never arrived at their destination. Almost 3 years on, we still have too many questions and not enough answers. When we heard the devastating news, we were plunged into the depths of a deep, dark abyss. But our wonderful celebrant who officiated at the funeral, Ros Curtis, helped us through those early days, saying that there are people with rope ladders and torches to help us climb out. All you people here today are testament to that statement. You're all here as family, friends, fellow musicians, work colleagues and clients celebrating their lives because you too love them and admire them. Many of Hannah and Jonathan's friends have now become our friends, and they continue to shine those torches. This is the second time since her death that I have stood on a stage in front of a few hundred people talking about my beautiful, talented Hannah. The first time was when Adam and I posthumously received her award for Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2019 from the Kensington and Chelsea Chamber of Commerce for her new business, Chez Artists, in recognition of her flair and determination. She won it, we were told, by a country mile. We are so proud of her. I sometimes think that Hannah thought I hadn't lived, and compared to some aspects of her lifestyle, I probably hadn't. She introduced me to Burford Browns, Christian Dior, and copious amounts of bubbles, not just for special occasions, but for every occasion, living by her mantra, champagne is the answer. But she was always ringing me to ask advice about the more mundane things in life, like, Mom, how do you iron a shirt? And of course, she never did. As we all travel on this journey called life, we can be hit by a tragedy so devastating that it tears your heart from your very being. And then you can experience the sheer joy of cradling a newborn in your arms. Our second granddaughter, Scarlett Hannah, born to Adam, our son, and Jenny, his fiancée. Hannah, a real auntie at last. Hannah didn't get to meet Jenny, for theirs was a lockdown romance, but we know she would have loved her, not only for the happiness that she brought into Adam's and our lives, but for the beautiful soul that she is. Jenny and Scarlett have brought a ray of sunshine into our lives. Thank you, Jenny. Hannah was a loving, caring daughter and sister. She was a talented musician, indeed a master at her craft, and more recently, a successful businesswoman. She was a loyal friend, an honest person. She approached every task with zest and determination, except for housework. She was an inspiring teacher and mentor. She would always brighten any day with her laughing smile, bouncy curls, and quick wit, always wearing bright colours. And why wouldn't you, I can hear her say. Hannah was a brilliant mum and a deliriously happy wife. She was my best girlfriend, and her death has left a gaping hole in our hearts and in our lives. Yes, life is a roller coaster. It can be like a gentle wave that laps the Whitstable shore, or like a thunderous wave that totally engulfs you. The truth is that none of us know what our journeys have in store. So please be kind to one another. We love you, Hannah. Let's shake, will you? Join me.
And now to our precious little granddaughter, Saskia. She was lent to us for a very short time, but her lovely nature, infectious giggles, and beautiful smile, as you've seen already on some of those slides, will stay in our hearts forever. Let's now sit back and enjoy our memories of Saskia. Saskia smiles at us now, the clear, untroubled smile of babyhood. And she will now always smile across the years, forever untouched by the griefs and troubles of adulthood. Where's Saskia going?
Where's Saskia going?
Saskia, here is a poem I'm going to read to you. It's called Too Soon by Mary Yarnell. This was a life that had hardly begun. No time to find your place in the sun. No time to do all you could have done. But we loved you enough for a lifetime. No time to enjoy the world and its wealth. No time to take life down off the shelf. No time to sing the songs of yourself, though you had enough love for a lifetime. Those who live long endure sadness and tears, but you'll never know the sorrowing years. No betrayal, no anger, no hatred, no fears. Just love. Only love in your lifetime. Saskia, we love you and miss you so much, sweetheart.
We all know that Hannah and Jonathan lived their lives to the full. It's what they excelled at. And we know they would want us to do the same. So, as hard as it is, and because we have each other, our wonderful son Adam and his girls, our families and our many friends, we will, to the best of our ability, continue our journey. We are learning to dance with a limp.
Thank you, Mum and Dad. And now let's focus on Hannah, the saxophonist. And we'll start with her beautiful rendition of Women of Ireland. So Hannah was a first-class performer, a great sister, and a wonderful human being. She was a very bright child and musical from a very early age. Proud of her gold stars for recorder playing, and also excited about learning to play the clarinet and performing in the junior school band. She was eager to learn to play the piano, and to her sheer delight at playing her clarinet and then her saxophone in the senior school bands and County Wind Orchestra will be long remembered. Music was Hannah's all-encompassing passion. Her long association with the Royal Academy of Music started as a result of some gentle guidance by one of her early teachers, Alf Wallbank, who hasn't been able to travel to be with us today, but he has sent through the following message. My Hannah. Hannah and I met when, as a young lady, she became a pupil and soon expressed her intention to become a professional musician. Hannah's determination to succeed, her ability to evaluate and to criticize her own efforts in a musically intelligent manner were genuine artistic gifts. I had the privilege of Hannah's company as pupil and student, and the pleasure of welcoming her as a professional colleague. The shock of Hannah's passing will haunt me forever. Thank you, Alf. So proud to win a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music, Hannah did double honours in clarinet and saxophone, gaining a double first despite being advised against studying 2 instruments. As with everything else, she got her way. And her professor, Richard Addison, who is here today, said that the way she delivered her piece in the finals was the best performance he'd heard that year. Always keen to keep learning and improving her technique, after graduation, she continued to study the saxophone at the Conservatoire in Paris under Jean-Yves Formore, where she won 2 gold medals for her performances. To fund her studies in Paris, Hannah successfully applied for a large bursary from the Lever-Hume Trust. Incidentally, this was the first time the Trust had sponsored a musician. First and foremost, Hannah was a performer, whether as a soloist or as a member of an orchestra. She poured so much energy and enthusiasm into everything she did, including her teaching, and her commitment was reflected in distinctions from many of her pupils and a 100% pass rate. Her pupils, some of whom are here today, learnt not just music, but also many life skills from her. There have been many highs in Hannah's performing life. Her televised solo performance at the BBC Proms at the age of 22, under the baton of the late Sir Colin Davis, thrilled the audience with her majestic playing and her beauty. Let's enjoy highlights from that performance and our young lady in red.
during rehearsals with these students early this week. And here they all are again. There is Hannah Marcinowicz, the tenor saxophone soloist, who also you might notice played bass clarinet. You might wonder why she's in red. Well, Sir Colin asked her to wear that for the performance because he's got a conviction that the sax solo in the third movement does indeed represent the devil.
So I hope that brought back some fantastic memories of that performance when Hannah was just 22. Another highlight was the concert she gave at King's Place in London in 2017, following her debut there in 2015. For this concert, the Women of the World, Screen and Sax 2 project, she sought to commission British women composers to write pieces for her, which she then premiered. A couple of these composers are here today, Rachel Portman and Jenny Muscat, who posted the following comment when she heard of Hannah's death. Proud to have known and worked with Hannah, sunny, collaborative, supportive. She was a joy, I am heartbroken. She was accompanied at this concert by her close friend and brilliant pianist, Philip Mountford, who will be playing shortly. First, however, let's watch Hannah, accompanied by Philip, in a recording of the Women of the World Screen and Sax 2 concert.
And Hollywood mixing theaters as sexist, while they led their orchestras through the movie music scores that made us laugh and cry. There simply weren't any women conductors. But surely authors changing that picture.
You can't see the composer's name. Even purposely leave the composer off, which I profoundly disagree with.
Didn't she look lovely in that dress? Hannah getting her own way for that concert. You might have seen on the catwalk those ladies wearing the dress that Hannah was wearing, and she actually approached Dior and asked for a dress that she could wear for that concert. And she got her own way, and that's what she was wearing, a very expensive dress, which I only learnt actually after her death through a story that when she walked off the stage after that performance, she snagged it in her heels and tore a bit off by accident and was alarmed. Philip, her accompanist, was like, she said to him, "What do I do?" He said, "Oh, don't tell anyone, keep it." So she kept it, and I've got the piece here actually. Philip thought this on its own is probably worth about £1,000 of that dress. So I've just borrowed it temporarily out of Hannah's saxophone case, but I thought I'd put that in my pocket today. So that's a little story about that dress, but Hannah getting her own way, as I say, and being loaned that dress. So Hannah's private life didn't take the same seamless path as her career. She certainly had to kiss a lot of frogs before she met her Prince Charming, Jonathan. They met in a recording studio when Jonathan found an excuse to go into the booth to suggest Hannah made some totally unnecessary adjustments. They quickly fell in love. Their mutual love of music brought them very close together, and it wasn't long before Jonathan proposed to her over lunch at Rive Gauche, having first rung Lech to ask permission. Their passion for music, combined with their love for each other, made for a very special relationship, where their work was their pleasure. They collaborated on projects, Jonathan composing, arranging, Hannah playing. One friend commented, "She made the most beautiful sound I've ever heard a saxophone make." Many people have offered to perform in her memory, and I would like to start by introducing Philip Mountford. Not only is Philip a brilliant pianist, but he is also one of Hannah's closest friends. Since her death, he has become a very close friend to our whole family. Philip and Hannah played so well together. You have just seen their performance in Women of the World. And they had lots of laughs in the process. Philip and Becky are playing two pieces together, 4 hands on one piano. The first piece, Le Jardin Féerique by Ravel, conjures up all the magic and wonderment enjoyed by a young child such as Saskia. Their second piece is an arrangement of Liber Tango by Piazzolla. They chose this piece because, through music, it perfectly represents Hannah, her outgoing nature, her sunny personality, and the warmth and empathy of her big heart. The music is lively and uplifting, just like Hannah. Philip will then accompany Sarah Field from Marici Saxes in a piece called Madame du Lac, composed by Rachel Portman for the film The Truth About Charlie. This music was very close to my sister's heart. She played it so movingly on a number of occasions, including at her grandmother's funeral. Philip, over to you. Thank you, Philip, Becky and Sarah, for your beautiful and moving performances. One musician who was due to perform live at the concert 2 years ago was Denise Baptiste, a saxophonist who collaborated with Hannah on a number of occasions. Unfortunately for us, he is on tour at the moment, so isn't able to play his own tribute to Hannah. Instead, we have a recording of the two of them collaborating on a piece called Turca 5. As you'll see, they clearly enjoyed playing together. So it had taken both Hannah and Jonathan a long time to find each other. But for both of them, the 29th of July, 2016 was one of the happiest days of their lives, when they cemented their relationship by tying the knot in their favourite London icon, Tower Bridge, a place with which Hannah had been fascinated since childhood. Let's share some memories from their wedding. Uniquely, they chose to play their first dance, and look out for a puff of wind blowing the music off of Hannah's stand.
I love you, baby.
So soon after they were married, Hannah focused her energies and her entrepreneurial talents into setting up Chez, exceptional artists in residence, bringing world-class musicians to clients who sought to make their special occasion extraordinary. Some of her clients are with us today. Her business took her overseas as well as in the UK, as she travelled to oversee personally for each client the entire musical experience. On occasion, when a client requested it, she would perform herself under the Chez brand. Although Hannah's first passion was music, she was also a very keen tennis player and enjoyed many a glass of rosé after a club match in the bar afterwards. Several of her friends from Berkeley Tennis Club are celebrating her life with us today. Her enormous zest for life and her sunny, positive character were a source of inspiration and amazement to many who met her. Hannah loved helping people, and this is evident in her decision to visit the slums of Mumbai, bringing music to disadvantaged and trafficked kids. Her visit was made possible by Alistair McIver, who's in the audience today, and before she set off, and in typical Hannah style, she cajoled people into supplying her with a suitcase full of recorders. Let's enjoy some moments from that occasion now.
Mumbai has an estimated population of 14 million people. Over 55% live in slums. Amazingly, slums take up just 6% of a city's land. Interserve works with Mumbai's slum communities. My name's Hannah Marcinowicz, and I was invited by Interserve to visit one of these communities. It's really quite a different view from the inside. The smell is overwhelming. Children and animals scavenge around the area. It was poverty as I had never experienced before. I'm a musician, and I was there to do a workshop with some of the children. They responded really well, and some of the children displayed great talent. I loved my time with them. We got on so well. I left some recorders for them to continue their musical journey. A lot of the parents I met were learning dressmaking and cookery skills, also English. For me, I am changed forever. You can't go into a slum community and not be impacted by what you hear, see and smell. The education work that Interserve is engaged in offers a lifeline to slum communities. Thank you for what you are doing to support Interserve's work.
Quite nice to hear Hannah's voice again, isn't it? So I'd now like to share with you a compilation I have put together of moments in Hannah's short life. A life that was full of activities, zest and passion. This is My Skin and Blister.
A hand above the water, an angel reaching for the sky. Is it raining in heaven? Do you want us to cry? And everywhere the broken hearted, on every lonely avenue, no one could reach them, no one but you. One Another tricky situation. I get to drowning in the blues, and I find myself thinking, well, what would you do? Yes, it was such an operation, forever paying every due. Hell, you made a sensation. You found a way through. One by one, only the good die young. They're only flying too close to the sun. We'll remember forever. And now the party must be over. I guess we'll never understand the sense of your leaving was in the way it was planned. And so we grace another table and raise our glasses one more time. There's a face at the window, and I ain't never saying goodbye. It's one by one, only the good die young. They're only flying too close to the sun, crying for nothing, crying for no one but you.
Always smiling. Right, so Jonathan and Hannah were the most extraordinary couple and family. They represented sunshine, harmony, love, and enthusiasm, intelligence, kindness, and warmth. Following their death, we received many messages of support, one of which said, "Jonathan was the most decent, principled man I have ever known in our business, and Hannah was a complete ray of sunshine." Her smile lit up every room she entered. They were so happy together and just loved living their lives. They packed more into their 6 years together than many couples do in a normal lifetime. Hannah and Jonathan were as one, whether as composer and performer, husband and wife, or as a mum and dad. Their closeness was evident to all and shines through in their music they created together. The London Golden Sax Project was a highly original collaboration between composer and performer, in which Jonathan arranged various songs of London from a bygone age, and Hannah interpreted them on her sax. Let's now watch a couple of pieces from this project.
click in my headset.
And so, with the final notes of their music fading away, I'd like to hand over to my dad, who will take us through the final part of this concert.
Thank you, Adam, and thanks for the absolutely brilliant job you have done in putting all those recordings and montages together. Absolutely fabulous. I've got a great family, haven't I? I'd now like to say a few words about the Marcinowicz-Goldstein Royal Academy of Music Award. The award has been set up in memory of our beautiful little family who was so cruelly taken away from us on the 25th of August, 2019. Hannah adored her time at the Academy, and she often went back to see her friends and colleagues. I think we all know how expensive London is to live in, and it's particularly difficult for young, talented musicians to afford to study here. The award aims to provide financial support to saxophone and composition players who would otherwise not be able to afford to continue their studies here. Students apply for this bursary, and a rigorous assessment of their application is made by the Academy staff before an award is made. We have also sponsored a seat in the theatre next door, in the new theatre, in memory of Hannah, Jonathan and Saskia, so that we have a lasting memory of them in this wonderful place. The last time I checked, the fund stood at £17,000, or around about that figure, with contributions from 90 donors. So this bodes well for the future, given that there's over 300 people here today. I make no apology for asking everyone to contribute as generously as you can, whether it's through individual donations or through your organisations, so that we can continue helping Royal Academy of Music students with their careers. You can see how much Hannah benefited from her studies here. Details on how you can donate are in the programme, so you've got no excuses. We're now going to hear from a student who has benefited from an Academy bursary, Wladyslaw Lech, who was selected to be the first recipient of the Marcinowicz-Goldstein Award. He has offered to play a tribute to Hannah and has asked me to say a few words afterwards on his behalf about how he has benefited from the award. Wladyslaw. Thank you, Vlad, for such lovely playing. I'd now like to read out some comments that Vlad has made about the benefits he's had from the bursary. And I start, meeting you last year and learning about Hannah was truly an honor. There are no right words to express my gratitude and to describe how thankful I am for your help. This year, I have really treasured the experience of playing in different chamber music ensembles and getting a place in the Academy Symphony Orchestra's project, where we played Dvorak's 8th Symphony. Thanks to the award, these challenging times have not interrupted my studies. For me, it has been an especially productive time. I have learnt a lot and have even had a couple of ideas for some interesting projects. Thanks to the support of the Marcinowicz-Goldstein Award, I'm able to pay for the supplies I need, like reeds, which are vital to study and to practice. I'm also able to rent a flat with my 2 friends. The cost of this is comparable to the cost of living in a student hall of residence, and yet the experience of living in our own flat is absolutely priceless. Thank you. If you haven't already done so, please complete your personal messages to Hannah, Jonathan and Saskia and put their cards in the marked boxes, or maybe if a volunteer does want to step forward at the end and hold one of those boxes at the escape route, if I could call it that, then maybe that'd be very, very kind of you to do so. Otherwise, the boxes will be in the patrons' room, which is just to the left as you come out of those doors. Oh, and by the way, you can keep the pens if you like. Professor Richard Addison, who taught Hannah while she was at Royal Academy of Music and who kept a close eye on her progress after she graduated, has asked if he can pay his own tribute to Hannah. We're of course delighted, absolutely delighted, that someone who was such a big part of Hannah's musical life should want to share his thoughts with us today. Richard.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, and relations of Hannah, Jonathan, and Saskia. The thought of speaking to you this afternoon is very daunting, especially following the wonderful performances we have just seen and heard. Ever since hearing of the tragedy, Hannah and her family have been constantly in my thoughts. I feel I will never be able to come to terms with the event. When Lech originally invited me to say a few words at this memorial celebration, I was seized with panic, realizing it would be the hardest gig ever. However, seeing so many of you here this afternoon, I can sense the importance Hannah's life has had on us all in such different ways. Although still panic-stricken, I feel the warmth and love pervading this hall, which sums up how worthwhile Hannah's life has been. I first met Hannah in December 2001. She was auditioning to become a student here at the Academy. She attended entrance exams at all the London music conservatoires and subsequently was offered places at them all. She chose the Academy. I remember her audition as being extremely musical, organized, well-prepared, and enthusiastic, so much so we offered her a scholarship, a first for a student saxophonist at the Academy. Credit must be given to her then teacher, Alf Wallbank, a very eminent artist who helped her prepare for the entrance exams. A few weeks after accepting our offer, Hannah rang me up and asked if she could come and have a consultation lesson. I think it was my turn to be auditioned. It transpired that Hannah wanted to play the clarinet in the lesson because she wished to do a joint saxophone clarinet first study course. A sensible proposition on her part, which after hearing her play, I fully supported. But it also meant that she would have to work twice as hard as her fellow students. With typical Hannah determination, she lobbied her head of course, and her request was granted. Hannah, from the very start of her studies, embraced life at the Academy, involving herself in all areas of student life, was incredibly focused, had a really strong work ethic, and was popular with her peers. In short, she was a pleasure to have as a student. I remember her turning up to lessons, sometimes on the verge of collapse, under a pile of instrument cases, soprano sax, alto sax, bass clarinet, plus a heavy bag of music and unknown paraphernalia. Always smiling and cheerful, well prepared and ready to go. As I've already mentioned, Hannah had been given such good advice from her previous teacher, Elf, which made my life so much easier. Our relationship was more collaborative than the usual student-teacher dynamic. This particularly came to the fore in her last year when planning and preparing for her final recital. Hannah was adamant it be a concert rather than an examination. All the pieces were researched and chosen carefully to challenge her playing. Each piece had a different colour and style. She experimented with electronic keyboards, used a harpsichord in a Baroque work which she had sourced and arranged. Being computer media savvy and a verbal communicator, Hannah produced a professional and colourful booklet of program notes. She wanted to introduce each piece herself. I had to point out the purpose of the recital was to assess her playing abilities. So she settled for welcoming the audience and at the end, thanking them for attending. The performance was extremely well received and supported by her fellow students. Hannah played superbly and was rewarded by the examiners marking her a distinction, giving her the highest mark achieved by a woodwind player of that year. Hannah's recital is one of the happiest memories I have of my time at the Academy. I was so proud of her. After leaving the Academy, Hannah went off to Paris, having been accepted to do a year's postgraduate course concentrating on her saxophone. She promised to continue honing her skills on the clarinet, which I felt was essential to ensuring professional work opportunities in the future. At about this time, I had been a chairholder in various West End musicals. I was therefore, on her return from Paris, able to give her the opportunity of deputy work. She diligently did her homework on the scores, and my fellow chairholders were always very pleased to have her come in and play. Hannah's career went from strength to strength. She was given opportunities to play with the BBC Concert Orchestra, Philharmonia, and Royal Philharmonic, to name but a few. However, her main love was solo performing. She excelled in putting together interesting programs where she could interact with the audience, introduce and commission new pieces into her repertoire. She had, as we've heard, a splendid wardrobe of concert dresses, which were a feature of her concerts. Her verbal presentations were entertaining and informative. Unfortunately, I never met Jonathan, but through conversations with Hannah, it was obvious how devoted to one another they were. I was aware of Jonathan's music and considerable reputation, as many of my younger colleagues had played on his recording sessions and spoke so highly of him and his music. With the arrival of Saskia, her short, precious presence brought so much joy to the family and further strengthened the bond between Hannah and Jonathan. I would like to finish by reading a poem by John Mark Green. Words seem so feeble in moments like these. Life is so precious, and death such a thief. The depth of your pain I cannot comprehend, but I'll stand alongside you in the darkness, my friend. Love is a bond that death cannot part, gone from your arms, but still held in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for those wonderful, moving words. Some time ago, we were contacted by the Friends of the Musicians' Chapel with an invitation to have Hannah inscribed in the Book of Remembrance. This is a tradition that honours musicians who have died and was inspired by Sir Henry Wood, whose ashes are interred in the chapel. By the way, those of you who are keen Proms goers will always see the bust of Sir Henry Wood, which is just standing there or sitting there on my left, and it is the one, that actual one, that is prominently displayed at every prom performance in the Albert Hall every year. The service of remembrance is taking place at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 18th of May, at St. Sepulchre's Church in Holborn Viaduct. Both Hannah and Jonathan will be inscribed there at the same time, so if any of you are free on that day, please feel free to attend. St. Sepulchre's is a big church, and I'm sure it'll accommodate anyone who wants to come. And now some thank yous, and I would like to ask my family to join me. Firstly, thank you from all of us to Jonathan Freeman Atwood and his staff for providing us with these wonderful facilities here and for all their help and support in making this celebration happen. In particular, thanks to Kirstine Finchnem, who manages the award programme, and to Gemma Waring for working tirelessly with us on all the logistics of putting on this event. Gemma has been an absolute diamond, really has. Thank you, Gemma. Thanks to Oscar Gormley, David Gleeson, and the technical stroke recording people for all their support. Thank you to all our wonderful performers who have given freely of their time to remember and honour Hannah and Jonathan. You don't get to see such class all in one afternoon very often, and free of charge. Many are close friends of ours, and I know they also miss Hannah and Jonathan terribly. Thanks to Darren Foley and James Edgar, who helped and advised us on the concert format and on the branding, as well as on the programme design. And I think you'll agree that the programme is a beautifully understated representation of what today has been about. Also, Jane White has helped us in so many ways, putting us in touch with people in Jonathan and Hannah's lives, or musical lives, whom we never knew. A special thank you to you too, Adam, for all the hard work that's gone into putting together this concert. The visuals and the musical tributes, absolutely superb. Hannah was always so proud of you, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone, when I say that what we have experienced together here today is a monumental achievement. Well done, son. I did say no photographs. I hope you'll let me off with that one. And finally, thanks to all of you who have travelled from many parts of the world to support us and to share in this tribute to Hannah, Jonathan and Saskia. Sadly, nothing will bring them back, but I know they approve of how we continue to remember them. Thank you very much, but I've not yet finished. I have just a couple of things to say. And it's so rewarding and warming to receive the depth of applause. That's the sort of feeling that Hannah used to get every time she performed. Before we bring this concert to an end, with one final piece from Hannah, I would like to say goodbye to you with this Iona community blessing, which the celebrant Ross Curtis read out at their funeral. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you. Let us now reflect on the beauty and talent of our three special people and the enormity of the tragedy that befell them that day, as we listen quietly to Hannah playing Jonathan's arrangement of Will You Buy. Thank you very much.